Hello, welcome back. Today we will learn this chapter evolution. Chapter 7 evolution. Evolutionary biology is the study of history of life forms on Earth. Which exactly is evolution? To understand the changes in the flora and fauna that occurred over millions of years on Earth, we must have an understanding of the context of origin of life. That means the evolution of Earth, of stars, and the indeed universe itself. What follows is the longest of all the construct and conjured stories. This is a story of not only the life of evolution, but also the biodiversity on the planet in the context of evolution of Earth, and against the background of evolution of universe itself. Origin of life. When we look at stars on a clear sky, we are uh, in a way looking back in time. Stellar distances are measured in light years. What we see today is an object whose emitted light started its journey million years back and from trillions of kilometers away and reaching our eye now. However, when we see objects in our immediate surrounding, we see them instantly and hence in the present time. Therefore, we see stars be apparently are peeping into the past. The origin of life is considered a unique event in the history of universe. The universe is vast. Relatively speaking, the Earth itself is almost only a speck. The universe is very old, almost 20 billion years old. Huge cluster of galaxies comprises the universe. Galaxy contains stars and clouds of gas and dust. Considering the size of universe, Earth indeed a speck. The Big Bang theory attempted to explain the origin of universe. It talks of a singular huge explosion unimaginable in physical terms. The terms expanded, the universe expanded, and hence the temperature came down. Hydrogen and helium formed on some time later. The gases condensed under gravitational and formed the galaxies of the present-day universe. In the solar system of the Milky Way galaxy, Earth was supposed to be formed about 4.5 billion years back. There were no atmosphere on the early Earth. Water vapor, methane, carbon dioxide, and ammonia released from the molten mass covered the surface. The UV rays from the sun broke up water into hydrogen and oxygen, and the lighter H2 escaped. Oxygen combined with ammonia and methane to form water, CO2, and others. The ozone layer was formed. As it cooled, the water vapor fell as rain to fill all the depressions and form the ocean. Life appeared 500 million years after the formation of Earth. All the dates are very important. This one also. Almost 4 billion years back. Almost 4 billion years back. Did life come from outer space? Some scientists believe that it came from outside. Early Greek thinkers thought unit of life called spores were transferred to different planets including Earth. The term, which is known as panspermia, is still a favorite idea for some astronomers. For a long time, it was also believed that life came out of decaying and rotting matters like straw and mud, etc. This theory of a spontaneous generation, Louis Pasteur by careful experimentation demonstrated that life comes only from pre-existing life. He showed that in pre-sterilized flasks, life does not come from killed yeast, while in another flask open to air, new organisms arose from killed yeast. Spontaneous generation theory by dis- Spontaneous generation theory was dismissed once and for all. However, this did not answer how the first form came on Earth. O'Brien of Russia and Haldane of England posed the first form of life could have come from pre-existing non-living organic molecules, example RNA and protein, and the formation of life was preceded by chemical evolution. That means the formation of diverse organic molecules from inorganic constituent. The conditions on Earth were high temperature volcanic storms reducing atmospheres containing CH4 and S3 etc. In 1953, S.L. Miller, an American scientist, created a similar condition in the laboratory in the laboratory scale. He created electric discharge in a closed flask containing C4H2NH3 and water vapor at 800 degrees Celsius. He observed formation of amino acids in some amino acids. In similar experiment, others observed formation of sugars, nitrogen bases, pigments, and fats. Analysis of meteoroid content also revealed similar compound indicating that similar processes are occurring elsewhere in space. With this limited evidence, the first part of the conjured story, that means the chemical evolution, was more or less accepted. We have no idea about how the first self-replicating metabolic capsules of life arose. The first non-cellular form of life could have been originated 3 years back. That would have been a giant molecule of RNA, DNA, या polysaccharides. These capsules reproduce their molecules perhaps. The first cellular form of life did not possibly originate till 2000 million years ago. First cellular form. These were probably single-celled. All life forms were in water environment only. This version of biogenesis, that means the first form of life, arose slowly through evolution process from non-living molecules, is accepted by majority. However, once formed, how the first cellular forms of life could have evolved into complex biodiversity of today is the fascinating story to be discussed below. Evolution of life, a theory. Conventional religious literature tells us the theory of spatial creation. This theory has three continuations. One, that all living species or types that we see created as such, that we see today were created as such. Two, that the diversity was always the same since creation and will be the same in the future also. Three, the earth is 4,000 years old. All these ideas were strongly challenged during the 19th century, based on observation made during sea voyages in a sail ship called HMS Beagle, round the world, by Charles Darwin, concluded that existing living forms share similarities to various degrees, not only among themselves but also with life forms that existed millions of years ago. Many such life forms do not exist anymore. There had been extinction of different life forms in the years gone by, just as new forms of life arose at different periods of history of Earth. There has been gradual evolution of life forms. Any population has built-in variation in has built-in variation in characteristics. Those characteristics which enable some to survive better in natural conditions. Natural conditions are climate, food, physical factors, etc. Would outbreed others that are less endowed to survive under such natural conditions. Another word used is fitness of the individual of the or the population. The fitness, according to Darwin, refers ultimately and only of reproductive fitness. Charles Darwin fitness is ultimately referred to reproductive fitness. Hence, those who are better fit in an environment lives more progeny than others. These therefore will survive more and hence are selected by nature. He called it natural selection and implied it as mechanism of evolution. Let us remember that Alfred Wallace, a naturalist who worked on Malay archipelago, archi, Malay archipelago, had also come to similar conclusion around the same time. In due course of time, apparently new type of organisms are recognizable. All the existing life forms share similarities and share common ancestors. However, these ancestors were present at different periods in the history of Earth, epochs, periods, and eras. The geological history of Earth closely correlates with the biological history of Earth. A common permissible conclusion is that Earth is very old, not thousands of years as was thought earlier, but billions of years. What are the evidences for evolution? What are the evidences for evolution? Evidence that evolution of life forms have indeed taken place on Earth has come from many quarters. Fossils are remains of hard part of life forms found in rocks. Rocks form sediment and a cross-section of earth crust indicates the arrangement of sediment one over the other during the long history of Earth. Different aged rock sediment contain fossils of different life forms, which probably died during the formation of the particular sediment. Some of them appear similar to modern organisms. They they represent extinct organisms. Example for dinosaurs. A study of fossils in different sedimentary layers indicates that the geological period in which they existed. The study showed that the life forms varied over time and certain life forms are restricted to certain geological time span. Hence, new forms of life have arisen at different times in the history of Earth. New forms of life arises a different time of history of Earth. This is known as planetological evidence. Do you remember how the age of fossils are calculated? Do you recollect the methods of radioactive dating and the principle behind the procedures? Embryological support for evolution was proposed by Ernst Haeckel, which who proposed this. This was proposed by Ernst Haeckel. Upon the observation of certain features during the embryonic stage common to all vertebrates that are absent in adult. For example, the embryo of all vertebrates including human develop a row of vestigial gill slits just behind the head, but it is functional organ only in fish and hence not found in any other adult vertebrates. However, this proposal was disapproved on careful study by Karl Ernst von Baer. who disagrees with this proposal, called Ernst von Baer. He noted that embryo never pass through an adult stage of other animals. He proposed that the embryo never pass through the adult stages of other animals. Comparative anatomy and morphology show similarities and differences among organisms of today that existed years ago. Trioptus, Tyrannosaurus, Petrodon, Crocodylon, Archaeopteryx, Stegosaurus, Brachiosaurus. A tree a tree family of dinosaurs and their living modern-day counterpart organisms like crocodiles and birds. Such similarities can be interpreted to understand whether common ancestors were shared or not. For examples, whales, fat, cheetah, and human, which includes all mammals, share similarity in the pattern of bone of forelimb. Though these forelimbs perform different functions in these animals, they have similar anatomical structure. All of them have humerus, ulna, radius, carpus, metacarpus, and phalanges in their forelimbs. Hence, in these animals, the same structure developed along different directions due to adaptation to different needs. This is known as divergent evolution, and these structures are known as homologous. Homology indicates common ancestry. Homology indicates common ancestry. Other examples are vertebrates, hearts, or brains. In plants also, the thorn and the tendrils of Bougainvillea and cucurbita represent homology. What represents homology in plants? The thorn and the tendrils of Bougainvillea and cucurbita. This is Bougainvillea and this is cucurbita. Homology is based on divergent evolution, whereas analogy refers to a situation exactly opposite it. Wings of butterflies and of birds look alike. They are not anatomical similar structure, though they perform similar function. Hence, analogous structures are results of the convergent evolution. Different structures evolving for the same function and hence having same similarities. Other examples of analogies are eye of octopus and of mammals, flippers of penguins and dolphins. One can say that there is a similar habitat that has resulted in selection of similar adaptive features in different groups of organisms, but towards the same function. Sweet potato, root modification, and potato stem modification is another example of analogy. In the same line of argument, similarities in proteins and genes performing a given function among diverse organisms give clues to common ancestries. These biochemical similarities point to the shared ancestry as structural similarities among diverse animals. Man has bred Man has bred selected plant bred Man has bred selected plants and animals for agriculture, horticulture, sports, or security. Man has domesticated many wild animals and crops. This intensive breeding program has created breeds that differs from other breeds. Example for dogs, but still are of the same group. It is argued that if within hundreds of years man could create a new breed, could not nature but have done over the millions of years. Means a man can create a new breed in within hundreds of years, but that will take millions of years for the nature to be done. Another interesting observation supporting evolution by natural selections comes from England. In collection of moths made in 1850 before industrialization set in, it was observed that there were more white-winged moths on tree than the dark-winged or melanized moths. However, in this collection carried out from the same area, but after industrialization, that means in 1920, there were more dark-winged moths in the same area. That means the proportions was reversed. The explanation put forth for this observation was that the predator bill spot a moth against a contrasting background. During post-industrialization period, the tree trunk became dark due to industrial smoke and soot. Under this condition, the white-winged moth did not survive due to predator. Dark-winged and melanized moths survived. Before industrialization set in, thick growth of almost white-colored lichen covered the tree. In that background, the winged moth survived, but the dark-winged moth were picked out by predator. Do you know that the lichens can be used as industrial pollution indicators? Yes, it can be used as industrial pollution indicators because they generally do not grow in a polluted area where the level of SO2 is high. They will not grow in areas that are polluted. Hence, moths are that were able to camouflage themselves. That means hide in the background. Survived. This understanding is supported by the fact that in areas where industrialization did not occur, that means in the rural areas, the count of melanic moths are still low. This showed that in a mixed population, those that can better adapt, survive, and increase in population size. Remember that no variant is completely wiped out. Similarly, excess use of herbicide, pesticide, etc. has only resulted in selection of resistant varieties in much lesser timescale. This is also true for microbes against which we employ antibiotics or drugs against eukaryotic organisms as cells. Hence, resistant organisms as said are appearing in a time scale of months or years and not centuries. These are the examples of evolution by anthropogenic action. This also tells us that evolution is not a directed process in the sense of determinism. Evolution is not a directed process. It is a stochastic process based on chances event in nature and chances mutation in the organism. These are important lines. What is additive radiation? During his journey, Darwin went to Galapagos Island. There he observed an amazing diversity of creatures of particular interest. Small black birds, later called as Darwin finches, amazed him. He realized that there were many varieties of finches in the same island. All the variety have evolved on the island itself from the original seed-eating features. Many other forms with altered beak arose, enabling them to become insectivorous and vegetarian finches. This process of evolution of different species in a given geographical area, starting from a point and literally radiating to other area or geography habitat, is known as adaptive radiation. Darwin finches represent one of the best examples of this phenomena. Another example is Australian marsupials. A number of marsupials, each different from others, evolved from an ancestral stock. but all within the Australian island continent, where more than one radiative appeared to have occurred within an isolated geographical area, representing different habitat. One can call these convergent evolutions and one can call this convergent evolution. Placental mammals in Australia also exhibit adaptive radiation in involving into varieties of such placental mammals, each of which appears to be similar in to a corresponding marsupials. Examples: placental wolf and Tasmanian wolf marsupial.